Okay, Shalom Akim Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim Havashai, Bahashim Bakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquathami. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Rukwai. I'm back in here with another quick, and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to go through a little bit about men of status versus then and now, and a strong contrast essentially between the two. When you look at our men today, they don't have essentially a they prioritize the wrong things, and versus back then, right? Back then, they actually had some stature, some strong countenance, not just physically, but mostly like spiritually, right? Because they actually you know um a lot of our forefathers were very fit vessels that Yahweh Shai would dwell with, right? They were dealing, you know, the Lord was dealing with them on like on a really, really high level, right? And but when you look at our people today, because they continue to transgress, essentially, the Lord doesn't really, want to, deal with those kinds of Israelites, right? So, um, let me go Slovakia. As a matter of fact, I'll start off by reading this word, going into this word status, what that means. Okay, here it says height. In the etymology, it says height. It says legal standing of a person. It says to stand, um, or be made firm, to make or make firm. It says legal standing in reference to some defined class of persons, right? So because knowing who we are, it creates a sense of what's the word I'm looking at? I want to say elitism, really, because we know, pursuant to Deuteronomy, that we are above these other nations, right? So, as a matter of fact, let me start off with that. Okay, Deuteronomy 7, verse 6, and it says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. The Lord thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth." Right? So, we're, as Israelites, we are above all these other nations. But the thing is, you have majority of our people, they don't conduct themselves as such. A lot of them know that they might be Israelites, but they don't conduct themselves as Israelites. They don't conduct themselves as kings, as nobles, and so on and so forth. They rather be, behave like, niggas, right? They don't want to behave as somebody who comes from like essentially like a noble family, right? You look at a lot of these shows, like one of my favorite shows is Game of Thrones, and there was a certain level of pride that each of the families had for their family name, right? That's why name is so important, because a name emanates essentially a reputation, right? Since I mentioned that, okay, Isaiah 45, verse 4, and it says, "For Jacob my servant, and Israel mine elect," it says, "I have called thee by thy name, I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me." Right? So, we don't walk, a lot of our people don't walk in the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? They don't walk according to those laws, statutes, and commandments. And the Lord essentially hides their face from these Israelites, right? So that's why it's not just, just to know that you are an Israelite, right? Yes, you are of a specific bloodline, and knowing is good, but at the same time, there is a reputation that, essentially comes with that too. And, they're just showing the strong contrast between the two, because our people prioritize essentially, like very vain things like money and so on and so forth, right? And they think a lot of these things, bring them status in the society, right? So let me go to, just bear with me on this. Okay, this is 1 Timothy 6. Um, okay, this is I'll start at verse 5 actually. So this is 1 Timothy 6 and 5, and it says, "Perverse disputings of men and of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. For such withdraw thyself," right? So a lot of our people believe that, they're thinking that, acquiring a crazy amount of money, is essentially the way to go, the way to live, the way to have status, the way to have, you know, um, to be, in a right frame of mind, right? But verse 6, but this is the kicker though. He says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain," right? "For we brought nothing into this world. It is certain that we carry nothing out," right? And that's true. We don't carry out, the like all these riches that, we accumulate, all these physical riches, I should say, we accumulate, spiritual riches, right? And those things are eternal, right? Those things, are kept safe, that, those things can't be tampered with, right? And this is what our people don't understand. They don't take and actually think about acquiring spiritual riches, right? Because it takes a strong level of faith to actually be able to do that, right? That's how far gone we are as a people, right? But it just goes to show that, it just goes to show that the mindset a lot of our people today versus the mindset of our forefathers back then. They didn't value themselves by a lot of these eternal physical things that they had, right? And what I want to do also, oh, actually, let me get that one. Hold on. Because as young men, when we look out on this world, you see a lot of these people on Instagram. They have their Lambos, they have their their many wives or whatever, or they have their nice house and all these kinds of things. And this is the mind frame that is constantly being pushed forth, especially like a lot of these so-called coaches that try to coach a lot of these men on how to be a better man and so on and so forth, and they never actually ever think about and discuss things like character and the importance of charity and brotherly kindness and servitude and all these different things. Like none of these are strongly emphasized when you look at their fruits, they look at their works essentially, right? It's a strong emphasis on acquiring a lot of physical and carnal riches. The scriptures say that riches profit not in the day of wrath. And even Yahushua even said as well, let me quote this, it's in Luke chapter 12. It says that a man's life doesn't consist in the things that he possesses, right? So it's not by the physical things that you acquire. Yes, if you have nice things and the Lord blessed you with nice things, of course you're going to say, Thawadi Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But at the same time, your life is not doesn't consist, and it's not encapsulated by these things. It's not defined by these things, right? um, where was I gonna go? Oh, here we go. So this is Psalms 37, verse 16, and it says, "A little that a righteous man hath is better than that the riches of many wicked," right? And it's true, because when you look at, like, I'll just use rappers as an example. Like a lot of rappers, they hold and prioritize, and they make a lot of so-called riches because they ain't got Esau's money. Like, let's be honest, right? They make this music to get paid, to do concerts, to do this, that, and the fourth. And what happens, a lot of them have to do a lot of wicked things to do it, and they have to essentially transgress against Heavenly Father to acquire those riches. So they don't have a lot of integrity. They don't actually care about their own brethren. I heard a very, very disturbing story in regards to the rapper that died years ago. I think his name was Young Dolph. And you had another rapper or one of his relatives that put a hit on him, right? So it shows the lack of care that they have for their own people. They don't care about the welfare of their own people, right? Like you're willing to essentially put a hit on your own kinsmen, on your own flesh and blood, on your own brethren, just to make a buck, right? So it shows the filthy mindset our people have, right? It's absolutely no scruples, no character, no nothing, right? Let me see. Let me get. So what I'm describing essentially encapsulates in these men today versus men of the ancient. You know, let me get an example. Okay, just bear with me on this. Okay, this is Genesis 41 verse 39, and it says, "And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as the Most High Yahweh hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art." It says, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can get it in the NLT real quick. Hold on. Let's see how I... I'm just going to read that in the NLT real quick. Hold on. Just bear with me, Akim. Okay, this is Genesis 41 and 39 in the NLT. It says, "And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since the Most High Yahweh has revealed the meaning of these dreams to you, clearly there is no one else as intelligent or as wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have the rank higher than yours." Verse 41, it says, "Then Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him, in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, "Kneel down." So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt. Pharaoh said to him, "I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in entire land of Egypt without your approval." Right? So Joseph was given a lot of favor, with the king, because the Most High was able to use Joseph to be able to actually break down his dream, right? And Joseph was, when you go back in his story, he actually maintained character and maintained his morals, because he had the opportunity to essentially come on to this woman, but he didn't do it because that was the Pharaoh's wife. Actually, in reality, the woman was actually making very advances towards him, right? And he because he already knew the law, right? So he was like, this ain't right, so he pulled himself back and restrained himself. And although he was accused of of doing something wrong, the Lord still had favor upon him. So essentially he had to suffer for a little while and essentially be lifted back up in this present time, because he was able to break down the Pharaoh's dream, right? Because and that's another thing too. So, in this case, and our people don't acquaint themselves with, the ways of the old, the ways of the ancient, right? The scripture says, seek ye the old paths, right? To be able to actually get understanding of their situation right now. Oh, Salakia Akim for any particular noise. But anyways, I was just saying, our people don't acquaint themselves, with understanding of, of the ways of the old past, right? The scriptures talk about seeking the old past. And, one of the manners of, a king is to be able to search things out and be like, okay, check things out and so on and so forth, right? But, our people would rather essentially scoff rather than try and get understanding. As a matter of fact, let me get this quick precept here. Hold on. So that's Sirach 21. Okay, this is Sirach 21, verse 15, and it says, if a skillful man hear a word, he will commend it and add to it. But as soon as one who hath of no understanding heareth it, it displeaseth him, and he casteth it behind his back, right? So it just goes to show the mindset. A king essentially would search out a matter, right? And, try and get understanding on certain things. But, our people, when they hear the word, they scoff at it, right? So it just goes to show that, back then you even had our people that were, like the scriptures talk about the church of Berea, that Berean spirit, they were searching the scriptures, right? Versus now, when our people, hear things today, they don't want to, search it out and actually try and get understanding, right? They rather just scoff or mock at it, right? So it just goes to show the difference between the men of old versus the men now. So I guess I'll leave it there, but I kind of made the point, Lord's will, that was edifying, Salakia for any, disruptions that you might have heard. But I just like to give out praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.